Top of the morning, everyone. My name is Tshidi and I'm back with another video. Today's video is steps to formatting your resume. Now, if you guys remember, I've talked about two different topics. So one topic was CV do's and don'ts. The second topic was single column versus double column resumes. The advantages and the disadvantages. It's up to you to decide which one you actually prefer. Now, this one is actually steps to formatting your resume and what steps you need to actually worry about going forward when you're actually formatting your resume. One of the key things that we always say is always make sure that you choose the right template. So before you begin the formatting of your resume, look at the different frameworks, different templates that actually do exist. Guys, there is absolutely so many templates online. You can go onto Word, you can go onto canva.com, you can literally go everywhere to find some of the templates, or you can even type online to say the best double or single column resumes, and you'll come up with tons and tons of these. The next thing that you need to also do is in that template, make sure that the margins are on the right space, because that's the other thing that people tend to make a mistake about is you choose a template where it's going to be very complex to actually try and put together the margins. The margins are basically the spaces in between. So make sure that the margins should always be enough space on each side of the column, whether it's top, bottom. It just shouldn't leave way too much space for anybody to actually look at. And then also the next thing that we then need to worry about is to choose a font. Guys, I've seen so many different fonts. Some of them are cursive, some of them are so many different things. And I know it actually makes it aesthetically pleasing to a lot of people to look at it. But the reality is it becomes a bit of a nightmare when it comes to it being pulled out by the ATS system for us to read through it and understand what you're trying to say. So there are a few fonts that I would actually do. So I would say number one is black is the preferred font color. As I mentioned in the do's and don'ts, black is the preferred font color. Don't go into anything else that's not font. That's not black. Number two is anything more than 12 point size is too much. Just reduce it to a 12 point size. If you can even take it up to 11 or 10. Those are the best formats or the best sizes that you can actually look at. And then the other thing is some of the best fonts that have been acceptable by a lot of companies and a bit of research is fonts like Arial, Calibri, Times New Roman, Cambria, Georgia, Helvetica, Veranda. Those are the normal fonts that even legal documents would normally have. So try and keep it simple, or think about it as your old school assignments. You never put them in some cyanotype, whatever format that might be. So try and keep it as simple as possible, because it just saves you from a lot of drama and a lot of painful. Now, the pro tip that I'd like to share is don't ever mix fonts on a resume. Choose one font and stick to it. Don't go out there and just go put 10 different fonts. It just makes no sense why you've got 5 different fonts that nobody can understand why you've got those. And the size should be the same. The only font that should be different should be one point above. It's normally the headings. Those are the only things that I would say. Yes, you could have headings that are slightly bigger than the normal content, but just make sure that the font is the same color, same size, same everything. There are sections or different headings that are key to making sure that people are able to get the best information that they could get out of your resume. Number one is contact information. First column or standard resume headings is normally contact information. What is your contact details? How can we find you? Contact details could be telephone number, could be email address, name, and surname. Those are key areas, or even the region that you live in. Please don't put your exact address in some of the countries. Just put the region that you live in. If you live in Bern, put Bern. If you live in Johannesburg, put Johannesburg. If you live in Pretoria, put Pretoria. Or you can even put Gauteng. It doesn't matter, because nowadays you can just work just about anywhere, and remote work is now allowing people to do these things. The next thing is resume summary. There's quite a bit of a debate on this one where we speak about the resume summary or objective, where you normally say my objective is to do X, Y, Z with company Y. Some people say, yes, put it out there. Some people say, don't put it out there. Whether you want to put it or you don't want to put it, it doesn't really matter at this stage, because the key information that we're looking for example, in this next one, is your work experience. What is your work experience? What experience do you have? So that's the next section that then follows, is that contact information, resume summary, or you can just leave that out. And then you've got work experience. That's one of the things that you need to worry about. Once the work experience is completed, then you can go into education. You don't have to have education above work experience, especially if it's going to add more pages to your resume. So if it's going to add more pages, then rather just move it to the end, because you want people to first see your work experience and then jump into some of the information. The other thing that I always now advise people to start doing is to add skills section. Now, this is where it's very important. This is what's going to make you stand out. Skills section, you go look at what the job spec is, you look at your own skills, you highlight the majority of the skills that are shown on the job spec that you've got. Please do not go put out there skills that just because you saw that they want somebody who has worked with Joomla or CSS or whatever other technologies that are out there, and you go put it out there, because we're going to now start testing that in the technical interview, and then you're going to fall short. So it's very, very important that you then make sure that you look at the skills that are required in the job spec, and you put those skills that you've got that are aligned to this particular job spec to say, I've got these skills 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is what it's got. Put that, because even from an ATS system, the ATS system is able to now pull that information up and then rank you a bit higher. See? See? That then helps you. Now, the other thing that we always sometimes say is there's additional headings that you can also put. Like one of the headings that you could put is awards and honors, especially if you just finished university and you're now starting to look at getting a job, and you know that the work experience and the skills section is not necessarily going to work for you. You can then start putting the awards and honors that you've received from the different organizations. The next thing that you can also put on those headers is training, as well as certifications and licenses. Some roles require you to have licenses. Like, for example, you might want to be a cloud person, and it might need you to have AWS cloud certification or Azure cloud certification. Whatever certification that you've got, make sure that you put them there so that people know that you have those certifications. If you have PMP, put it out there. If you have business analysis certification, put it out there. Make sure that it's on your resume, because recruiters and line managers sometimes look for that. There's nothing more disappointing than somebody not putting the certifications, and then you have a conversation with them and you realize they actually have even more certifications that were nice to have. So put the certifications there so that people can know what certifications that you've got. Students, once again, volunteer work. If you've had any volunteer work, please add it there, because remember, once again, we can't measure you based on your experience, but we can measure you based on the fact that you've actually done good work from a volunteer work. And then special projects and languages. In some instances, you might need to have more than one language. You might need to speak French, German, or whatever language it is. Put the languages that you actually have there, because once again, from a scoring point of view, if the company says, I want somebody that can speak Swahili, English, and Venda, and all these other languages, German, and you don't have any of those, the ATS is not going to be able to pick that up if you do not put it in your resume. The other thing that I want to say is, another pro tip is, keep the font size uniform throughout the resume. Remember, I've said that before. Please do not go out there and make the font a bit more exciting because you want to emphasize this, and you make it bigger and then it's smaller, because like I said, from an ATS point of view, it actually becomes a bit of a nightmare. Align your text. Make sure that your text is aligned, because one of the things that people do is they put this information and then they forget to format it and align it. Sometimes you can justify it whichever way that you want to do it, but just make sure that the bullet points are all aligned, because if they're not aligned, it's just, you pay attention to detail, but the one thing that you could have done, which is to put bullet points in one alignment, you couldn't do that. It's like, are you really one of those people that really pays a lot of attention to detail? Check for appropriate spacing. Now, there is nothing worse than seeing contact details, education, or contact details, experience, and then half the page is just blank because you've started the next bullet point in the next page. Like, make sure that the appropriate spacing is there. Check for it. And if you really do think that your resume might end up just moving around when you actually submit it into the ATS, move it as a PDF, because then it locks the spacing as is. So if it's a PDF, it'll be locked in that format. It will never actually change. But if it's a Word document, make sure that the spacing is actually done correctly. So make sure that you actually check that. The other thing is add bullet points where appropriate. The mistake that people tend to make is that they tend to write paragraphs. Once again, bullet points where it's actually needed. And then next pro point is, remember some of the conversations that I had about the double versus single column resumes. Make sure that your resume is actually correct for whatever ATS that you're actually applying to. Most ATS systems will take both double or single column, but in some cases I'll say just use a single column. It just saves you a lot of drama. Those are, for me, some of the key most important things or steps of actually making sure that your resume is formatted correctly. As I mentioned, these are some of the things that you need to look at. Contact information. Resume summary or CV summary, not always important. Having it or not having it doesn't matter. You can use it sometimes as a cover letter or an introduction. It doesn't matter. Work experience section is important. Education section is important. And skills section is important. Your skills is what makes you stand out. Out of everybody else that's applied, it's what makes you stand out. And then from there, additional points that you might have is make sure that your certifications are there, the training programs that you have done, awards and honors that you've done, your volunteer work, special projects, anything along those lines. Please make sure that you do that. Top of the morning once again with Tshidi. Until we meet again in the next video on next Tuesday. Peace.